May 1st, 1994. For the world, just another ordinary day. But for Brazil, the day the world stood still. In that instant, the world didn't just lose a driver. Brazil lost a hero. Brazil lost Ayrton Senna. But to understand the weight of that day, you have to go back in time. Ayrton Senna was born on March 21st, 1960 in São Paulo, and from a very young age, it was obvious he wasn't like the others. At just 4 years old, his father, Milton da Silva, built him his first go-kart, and what was supposed to be a simple toy became the beginning of everything. The moment that little boy sat behind the wheel, his passion for racing came alive. And as the years passed, Senna already understood what he was born to do.
Comecei aqui a kart com 4 anos de idade. Foi meu pai que me colocou no kart, que me levou todos os domingos, me levava todos os domingos à tarde brincar num lugar fechado, um kart de 1 HP, andava 10 por hora e eu gostei da brincadeira e fui em frente.
By the age of 13, he was already racing competitively in karting, and it didn't take long for him to start winning, and that mindset would eventually take him far beyond Brazil. At the end of the 1970s, Senna moved to Europe with one goal only, to become the greatest driver in the world. And once he got there, he fully immersed himself in motorsport.
O automobilismo brasileiro tem mais campeão nas pistas da Europa. O paulista Ayrton Senna venceu o Campeonato Europeu de Fórmula 4 por antecipação com a vitória de ontem na Dinamarca. A campanha do piloto brasileiro venceu 5 das 8 provas, está sendo muito destacada por toda a imprensa europeia, porque nem no tempo em que Emerson Fittipaldi foi campeão da Fórmula 4, os resultados foram tão bons.
In 1981, Senna debuted in Formula Ford 1600 and dominated. 1 year later, he stepped up to Formula Ford 2000 and dominated again. But in 1983, in the British Formula 3 Championship, everything changed.
O recorde mundial do piloto brasileiro Ayrton Senna no Campeonato Inglês de Fórmula 3. Nada menos 8 vitórias consecutivas.
That's where he faced rising stars like Martin Brundle. And Senna didn't just win, he shocked people. So at that moment, Formula One teams already knew a phenomenon was coming.
Na Fórmula 3, o brasileiro Ayrton Senna chegou este ano na Fórmula 1 como jovem com futuro promissor.
In 1984, Senna finally made his Formula One debut with Toleman. The car was limited. It had no real title potential, but for Senna, that never mattered, because from day one, it was clear his talent went far beyond the machinery. And nothing proved that more than Monaco, 1984. That Sunday, under pouring rain, Ayrton Senna started only 13th in his modest Toleman, and nobody expected anything. But lap after lap, the world watched Senna control the car like the rain didn't even exist. And the moment that shocked everyone came when he overtook Niki Lauda's McLaren, a driver who was already a 2-time Formula One world champion. While others braked early, Senna trusted the car. While others made mistakes, Senna attacked. And then only one man remained ahead of him, a man who years later would become part of his destiny. Senna was catching Alain Prost, and the entire world watched a rookie driver getting ready to do the impossible. But before the overtake could happen, the race was stopped. Senna finished second, and on the podium, all the cameras captured was a shy young man. But that day, the world saw something it had never seen before. That day, a genius was born, and it was only the beginning. Because less than a year later came his first victory.
Ayrton Senna, trazendo com muita cabeça nessa última volta.
para buscar a sua primeira vitória na Fórmula 1.
After Monaco, the entire world knew his name. And then came the opportunity.
Lotus, Williams, Ferrari, Brabham, Renault disputavam grande prêmio chamado Ayrton Senna.
In 1985, Senna signed with the legendary Lotus team, a historic organization searching for its way back to the top. And now, they had the perfect driver for it. At the 1985 Portuguese Grand Prix, the rain came once again to challenge Ayrton Senna. That was a race where just surviving was already a victory. But Senna wasn't there just to survive. Right from the start, he took the lead, and what followed looked like a one-man show.
Ayrton Senna, com todo cuidado, trazendo na ponta dos dedos.
Lap after lap, Senna pulled away while the rest of the grid struggled just to avoid crashing. He simply disappeared out front until he was the first to see the checkered flag with more than a minute's lead over everyone else.
Aí vem ele com a Lotus de número 12. Aí vem a nova estrela da Fórmula 1 brasileiro, Ayrton Senna. Uma carreira fantástica em todas as categorias inferiores. Ele vem pela reta. O diretor da prova faz outro sinal. Olhou o cronômetro. Bandeirada para ele. Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna vem do Grande Prêmio de Portugal. Ele já abriu o cinto. Ergue os braços. Ayrton Senna faz a sua festa do Estoril. O brasileiro Ayrton Senna. Fantástico.
That day wasn't just Ayrton Senna's first victory. That day was proof that Senna in the rain was unbeatable. But even with all the glory at Lotus, Senna knew that to reach the top of the world, he would have to take a bigger step toward a more dominant team. And when that happened, Formula One was never the same again. In 1988, the Brazilian made the biggest decision of his career and signed with McLaren. Now there were no more excuses, but with that opportunity came an even bigger challenge, because on the other side of the garage stood Alain Prost, a two-time world champion. And what was supposed to be a partnership quickly became something far bigger. But before the war fully exploded, Senna would show something not even Formula One was prepared to understand.
Ayrton Senna has hit the wall. Ayrton Senna is out of his car and out of this race.
During qualifying for the 1988 Monaco Grand Prix, Ayrton Senna outpaced Alain Prost by over a full second. But what shocked everyone most were his words afterward.
That day, I suddenly realized that I was no longer driving it conscious, and I was in a different dimension for me. The circuit for me was a tunnel, which I was just going.
But even Senna himself admits that it scared him because he realized he had crossed a line. And the next day, during the race, when Senna was leading by more than 50 seconds, he crashed and had to retire.
O Senna tem lá 54 de vantagem para Prost, 1 minuto e 4 de vantagem para Berger e 1 minuto e 20 de vantagem para Alboreto. O Alboreto é o quarto colocado. Isso quer dizer que o Senna daqui a pouco vai chegar no Michele Alboreto, que é o quarto colocado. E só esse Senna já completou a volta de número 66. 1:29.1. Restando, portanto, a esta altura, menos de 12 voltas para o final da prova.
Ayrton Senna has hit the wall.
Ayrton Senna abandona a prova. O pneu traseiro esquerdo. Ali estava vazio. Ayrton Senna na entrada do túnel. A menos de 12 voltas do final.
A rare mistake that showed driving at that level came at a cost. And even so, none of that would stop the inevitable. Because the year 1988 wouldn't be remembered for that mistake. It would be remembered as the beginning of a legend. The 1988 season became one of the most dominant years in Formula One history. The McLaren destroyed the competition with 15 wins in 16 races. But while it looked easy from the outside, inside the team, it was war. That year, Senna and Prost were locked in such a fierce battle for the championship that the title wasn't decided until the penultimate race.
Ayrton Senna quer a vitória e se ele conseguir a vitória será campeão mundial em 1988.
Japanese Grand Prix in 1988. Senna needed to win. Prost just had to keep things under control, but as soon as the lights went out, something went wrong. Senna's car stalled, causing him to lose positions, and as a result, his dream of the title. But like a true Brazilian, Senna doesn't give up, and lap after lap, he starts to fight back, overtaking and regaining positions, until he catches up to Prost, and without hesitation, he overtakes him, takes the lead, pulls away, and crosses the finish line, becoming world champion.
Em 16º, 17 segundos de diferença para Prost, veio tirando cada segundo, fez uma ultrapassagem fantástica, botou frente. São 5.859 metros. Ayrton Senna do Brasil. 12 pole positions da temporada, recorde absoluto de pole position. Ele vai tentando chegar à sua 8ª vitória, o que é um recorde também absoluto de vitórias em uma só temporada, para atingir o seu primeiro título mundial na Fórmula 1. Se aproximando da 8ª vitória, de um sonho que ele alimenta desde os primeiros anos. É a confirmação de um talento, da garra, da vontade, da determinação de um piloto. O diretor de prova aguarda, o Brasil inteiro aguarda. Ayrton Senna, ergue o punho, vibra, é a Brasil! Ayrton Senna, do Brasil! Campeão mundial! Brasil!
The 1989 season was very similar to the previous one. So much so that the end of this story, driver, was in Suzuka once again. This time, at the 1989 Japanese Grand Prix, Senna needed to win, and Prost couldn't let that happen. And that's exactly what he did. After chasing the Frenchman the entire race, in the final laps, Senna tries to make his move to take the lead, but they collide. And even though Senna continues and wins the race, the Brazilian ends up being disqualified, giving Prost the title and pushing the rivalry between the two beyond any sporting limits.
E olha aí Senna como chega em Prost, tirando de vez a diferença em relação a Prost. Já não há mais diferença entre os dois. Rasga pela reta Prost, rasga atrás dele, Ayrton Senna, eles vêm para a ultrapassagem. Tenta sair Senna, tenta se aproximar, eles vão para a curva de alta esquerda. Prost tangencia, Senna também, Senna vai mais lá fora na zebra. Eles chegam na chicane, Senna meteu por dentro, vai bater, vai bater. Assim bate, o favorecido é Prost. Assim bate, o favorecido é Prost. Aí o título fica com o Prost.
A year later, fate brings everything back to the same place. Suzuka, title decider, Senna versus Prost. But this time, Prost is with Ferrari, and Senna is still deeply hurt about the previous year. But this time, Senna didn't wait. At the start, the world watched both cars collide instantly, and the championship belonged to Ayrton Senna.
Vai pintar a luz vermelha, sobe o giro dos motores, luz verde. Senna tenta arrancar na frente, Prost largou melhor e tomou a frente Prost. Tomou a frente Alain Prost, Senna força, vai por dentro. Aí a batida dos dois, e aí se seguir a prova é final de campeonato. Se seguir a prova é final de campeonato. O campeonato terminou e Ayrton Senna é campeão de 1990.
That day marked the peak of a war between two legends, willing to do absolutely anything to win. But while the world argued about who was right and who crossed the line, Senna still had something left to prove. Something he had never achieved before.
Está perto, mas ele vai apontar. Aí Senna, de ponta a ponta, vai apontar Ayrton Senna. Depois desta curva, aponta Senna.
For years, Ayrton Senna carried a weight greater than his victories. He was already a two-time world champion, already the fastest driver on the grid, already a global superstar. But one thing was still missing: a victory at home. The 1991 Brazilian Grand Prix became the race where Senna led from start to finish, but with only a few laps remaining, his gearbox began failing, and for the final 7 laps, he drove stuck in a single gear, enduring unbearable physical pain, just to win his home race.
Seria um drama reservado no final desta prova. O Senna avisa, aponta. Aí vai ele, vai para a 28ª vitória. Aí vem Senna, de ponta a ponta no Grande Prêmio do Brasil, fica de pé a torcida. As bandeiras começam a se agitar. A quadriculada em preto e branco está nas mãos de Mihaly Ridazzi. Depois desta curva, aponta a Senna. Vem pra reta, vai pra vitória. Mihaly Ridazzi, Ayrton Senna do Brasil. De ponta a ponta ele vence
While that moment looked like the peak of his career, Formula One itself was changing, and McLaren's dominance collapsed against the Williams team. And that began the hardest chapter of Senna's career between 1992 and 1993. And in his desperate search to return to the top, Senna finally joined Williams in 1994.
Williams acaba de anunciar a contratação do piloto Ayrton Senna para a temporada do ano que vem da Fórmula 1.
1994, Senna finally joins Williams and has the fastest car on the grid, but something is wrong because this car is unstable, difficult, and dangerous. So much so that Senna starts the year losing the first 2 races to Michael Schumacher until the San Marino Grand Prix arrives.
Senna bateu forte.
The 1994 San Marino Grand Prix became known as the darkest weekend in Formula One history. On Friday, during free practice, the world watched as Rubens Barrichello suffered a violent crash. And the worst happened the next day, when Roland Ratzenberger suffered a fatal accident during qualifying. This event clearly affected Senna, and it was obvious in his expressions. But even so, he decided to race. That race started in absolute chaos, with a crash right at the start, which brought out the safety car, and later a restart.
Vai pintar a vermelha. Senna e Schumacher na primeira fila. Senna por dentro, Schumacher por fora. Vem a verde, lá vem a verde. Senna tenta. Senna vai tentar a ponta, Schumacher vem por fora. Fica parado, batida. Fica parado, vamos ver se vai ter outra largada.
At the restart, Ayrton Senna stays in the lead, but on the 7th lap, as he approaches the Tamburello corner, something happens. The car doesn't make the turn, goes straight, and crashes into the wall at high speed.
Senna bateu forte.
Millions watched on television without understanding what they had just seen, and hours later came the confirmation that stopped the world.
Repórter Roberto Cabrini fala neste momento via telefônica diretamente do Hospital Maggiore de Bologna. Cabrini.
A médica Maria Teresa Fiandre comunica a todos os jornalistas aqui do Hospital Maggiore de Bolonha que Ayrton Senna da Silva está morto.
That tragic May 1st ended in silence. But what came afterward, Brazil would never forget. When Ayrton Senna's body arrived in São Paulo, it was taken to the Legislative Assembly, and what happened there was indescribable. Nearly 250,000 people came to pay their respects. People of every age, from every corner of Brazil. People who had never met him, but felt like they had lost someone from their own family. But the following day, São Paulo completely stopped, with the streets overflowed with people. Senna's coffin, covered by the Brazilian flag, moved slowly through the city, while crowds gathered for one final goodbye. And finally, Ayrton Senna was laid to rest at Morumbi Cemetery in São Paulo, a place still visited by fans from all around the world. Some drivers win races, some win championships, but very few defeat time itself.
Senna nos braços do povo.
Ayrton Senna was never just a champion. He was the hero his country needed. And that is why May 1st will always be remembered, because that was the day Ayrton left us. But it was also the day his legacy became eternal. After all, we all know Ayrton Senna never truly died. He's just one lap ahead of us.